Good morning. I hope you're having a happy Sunday so far. Well, Neil and I have had just the best time going through Genesis with you, and as it's coming to a close, he and I have been having lots of discussions in these most recent chapters. And unfortunately, there's just not enough time to go through on a Sunday morning in a 25 minute service all that we feel God has laid on our heart to explain to you. So, as Neil and I were talking, there are some things that just leapt out to me from the scripture that we just wanted to share with you, though we didn't have time during the Sunday morning sermon. So you might want to consider this, we'll say, like the bonus track of the movie. So for those of you who are wanting further introspection on Genesis 46, here are some things that I gathered from my time alone with the Lord. And when you go through this on your own, it would be so cool if you would let us know on Facebook some things that really jumped out to you in this passage that maybe we haven't pointed out or discussed as a church. So first of all, the one thing is we see that now Joseph has revealed himself to his brothers. They go back, they get their dad and all of their belongings and their family, and they're making the trek back away from the land of destitution and now back to Egypt, the land of plenty, where they get to dwell in harmony with their long-lost brother. And I love that it points out right at the very beginning of Genesis 46:1 that Jacob, who they're now calling Israel, and remember, Israel was the name given to him once he struggled with God, yet overcame. So he's being called Israel again, and it says Israel packed up all that was his and came back to Egypt to be with his son. If you are someone who you know God is calling you back, you have struggled with him, maybe you've been away from him, but now you know he's calling you back. You need to come back to him in the exact same way. Come back to him with everything you have. Don't leave anything behind. So that's the first thing. Secondly, you will notice as you read through Genesis 46 that there is once again tons of parallel between the language in Genesis 46 and the language in Luke 15. Which is a very famous passage of scripture called the prodigal son. So if you are someone that is unfamiliar with the prodigal son, we would love it if you would take the time this week to read through Luke 15. It's basically the message of the entire gospel. So have fun reading that, knowing that it parallels also with Genesis 46. Also, to live is Christ and to die is gain is what Paul writes to the Philippians church in Philippians 1:21 through 23. You'll notice that Jacob says, once he knows that he's seeing Joseph again, he says, I'm back with my son. I've seen my son. I know he's living, and now I can die. He's not necessarily saying that he just wishes he could die now. Well, it's been a good life. I guess I'll just die. What he's saying is, everything that I'd hoped for, everything that mattered to me, I know is true now. My son is alive, and because of that, I can die in peace. We are meant to enjoy this life. Each day that we have life here on earth is a gift to us. And yet, because we know Jesus, we truly can know that we can go home to be with him and be at peace with the concept of dying. Death is something many people fear on this earth, but we as Christians can have the peace of not fearing even death. Isn't that awesome? Also, in Romans 8:34, it talks about how Jesus sits at the right hand of God in the heavenly realms. This is so exciting because when you read through Genesis 46, you will find that when the family is reunited, Joseph says to his brothers and to his dad, I will go to Pharaoh, the ruler, and I will talk to him about you guys. I will be your defender. See, Joseph is the mediator between his far-off family and Pharaoh, the king of the earth. Jesus acts as our mediator. It says that he's sitting constantly at the right hand of God, acting as our defender. You see, in Bible times, the one sitting at the right hand of a judge in a court of law, that was the defender. So when we read in Scripture that Jesus sits at the right hand of God, that tells us right there he is interceding for us, not just as a mediator, but as our defender. So I love that parallel too. We had to point that one out. And finally, at the end of the chapter, Joseph talks to Pharaoh about all of the things that his brothers and his dad are good at, things they were good at before they came to Egypt, which in this case was tending sheep, tending flocks. See, Joseph's family had been trained to be shepherds their whole entire lives, and they were good at it. And now that they've come to live in Egypt, Joseph is saying, you're not just here to escape death. You're here to do work. So listen, if you're someone who knows the gospel message, you've accepted Christ in your heart, and you know that you are eternally saved, yes, be glad, rejoice in that, live at peace, but also know that God has created you to do work, and if you're not doing it, you will not be fully satisfied on this earth. Once you have accepted this invitation to be with Christ, to be at peace with God, there is work that you are created to do. And that is work that God created you to do in advance, which means those things you're already gifted and skilled in, you need to be doing right now for the glory of God and be satisfied on this earth while you're still living. Hope you have an enjoyable Sunday. We love you guys, and I can't wait to hear your stories about what you're discovering through this Genesis walk.